They are going to force Steam, PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, all the big video game stores in the world to warn you that you are not buying digital games, that none of what you have in your library is yours, that they are simply limited time licenses. In today's video, we are going to talk about the topic of digital games, physical games, and what is happening in the United States that is going to change the rules of the game from 2025 onwards. Hello people of Steam, I have no plans to die anytime soon. But the day I do, I would like to know if I can leave my games or my Steam account as an inheritance. A Steam user asked this to the technical support of this platform in May of this year. Unfortunately, Steam accounts and games are not transferable. We cannot allow another person to access your games. Nor can we allow another person to use your account. This was the official response from Steam support to this user who was asking if he could bequeath his games to another person. And why? You might be wondering why if you bought something? Why if it's your property? If you paid for this game, for this consumable, or whatever it is digitally, why can't you leave it to someone else? It is assumed that what you buy is yours and you can do with it whatever you want. The reality is that when you buy a game on Steam, in the PlayStation Store, in the Xbox Store, wherever you want, and that game is digital, you are not buying anything. None of what you are acquiring is yours. Your games are not yours, no. What you are buying is a license to use a game or software. A limited time license that if it expires or if the person selling it to you decides that you can no longer use it, guess what? You won't play the game. This is a recurring topic. It is not a new topic at all. We have been talking about this for many years. You don't buy digital video games, you buy licenses to play digital games. The thing is that we are talking about this again, because this week something very important happened that changed the rules of the game again. Now Steam and other digital stores are legally obliged to tell you that you are literally not buying anything. That none of this is going to be yours. That you are only paying to use a game for a while in a non-transferable way. That is, the licenses you buy, you can't pass them on to someone else. Because you don't even own the right to use that license as you want. You don't own anything. Things happened this week. Specifically, they happened in the United States of America. In the United States, a very important ruling was made. And that's why today, we are talking about the digital format of licenses and everything that is happening and what will happen in the future. Let's start at the beginning, which is very related to Ubisoft. In 2014, Ubisoft launched this game, The Crew, a racing title with online multiplayer. Well, it has multiple disciplines, multiple vehicles and other things. And that is mainly played online. A title that was sold, in quotes, all over the world, and that managed to gather its good amount of fans and its good amount of users. Several years after launching The Crew, Ubisoft launches The Crew 2, and then, very recently, it launches The Crew Motorfest, the evolution of this franchise. Well, it happened that with these new releases, Ubisoft decided to shut down The Crew, the one from 2014, and with this, deny access to the game to all those people who for a decade had, in quotes, bought this game. The thing is that what Ubisoft did to prevent people who had already bought The Crew from accessing the game is not exactly illegal, because in the license agreements of this game, those agreements that we accept without reading, it was already specified that the day Ubisoft felt like shutting down the game, they would shut it down. And that's it. That's why Ubisoft one day said, well, you know what? The Crew is over, it's done. The problem is that The Crew, like so many other digital video games, was sold. Of course, because digital stores and other video game stores sell you things. They don't say that they rent you a license or that you are buying a limited use license. Or much less, they simply tell you, I sell you a game. You can buy a game. Currently, when you buy a title, well, you buy a digital title. Almost no store will have a sign that literally says buy. Usually they put add to cart so that later in the cart it says proceed with payment. They avoid saying that you are buying something because in reality you are not buying anything. You are simply asking that a software use license be issued in your name. Issues that it was not always like this, and for many years Digital products that were limited use licenses, put up the sign to buy. And when you see a video game in the background and ahead the sign to buy, and you click to buy and pay, you understand that you are buying the game, that the game is yours. Well, in the United States, a group of players legally represented by one of these studios that are dedicated to suing large companies presented a case. And in California, a jury ruled in favor of this case, in favor of these people who said they were deceived because they had bought the Crew and suddenly they saw that they did not have the Crew, that they could not access the game, and that Ubisoft was shutting down the service. Digital stores will not be able to use words like buy or acquire unless they warn their users. This is the ruling of the California court. The idea of all this is to end the false concept that you are buying something when in reality you are not buying anything, you are simply adding the use of a license to your library. The law is called Assembly Bill 2426 and it will come into effect starting next year. Of course, in the United States this is not a global obligation, far from it. But what happens with the United States is that it is one of the main markets in the world and they set trends. If in the United States it is going to be required that stores express themselves in a specific way to make it clear that you are not buying anything, well, that is going to end up translating into everyone else doing the same. You might be thinking that buying physical games is a way to indeed preserve the title you are buying and yes, keep something from everything you buy. And the truth is that in some cases yes, and in others no. Let's not forget that The Crew was also launched in physical format. And like this, there are many video games that are launched in physical format and that in reality, the only thing they are offering you is a faster way to install the game than downloading it from the internet. I'm not saying all physical games, but there are many games that are like that. At the same time, nowadays we also have many games that come complete or playable within the disc or within the cartridge. There are cases where the physical game guarantees that you are keeping a copy of the game, and there are other cases where it does not. Beyond whether you have a physical copy or not, and this physical copy allows you to access the game as many times as you want without the need for a server, if it is the case of the game. Beyond all that anyway, you are not buying a game, you are buying a license, even if you buy a physical game. This has been the case for over 20 years. And it's because the big video game companies wanted to prevent you from buying a game and then doing whatever you wanted with the game, like renting it or putting it in an arcade or video game room or other things, without the video game company getting any kind of royalties or something like that. It's ancient history. But for a long time you've been buying licenses. The problem lies in that when you bought one of those licenses, you may not have anything, not have an installer, not have a way to play the game, and if the company wants to withdraw the game forever, then you are left without your copy or your access or your license that you paid for. I like it because in one part of the law they put the word buy or acquire or any other term is prohibited, that a reasonable person understands that it confers an unlimited property interest in the digital good. That is, from next year, unless they are going to give you this digital good, so that you can dispose of it as you wish, the word buy, sell, acquire, and other similar terms is prohibited. How does it affect us? On paper, it doesn't change much. Everything is going to continue to be more or less the same. Especially for those of us who have been very involved in this for many years, and we know that this is the case. Even Fortnite was sold with a physical copy, and it's a license. And that's it. I mean, there's no game. We already know that this is the case. This is aimed at the bulk of the population, at ordinary people who suddenly see buy a movie, buy a series, buy a book that suddenly does not belong to them. Because this also applies to movie streaming, to platforms like Netflix, Homebox, Office, Amazon, and others. This is going to apply to everything. It is expressly forbidden to make a person believe that they are buying something when they are not. As I was saying, it doesn't affect us too much because we already know the rules of the game. We have been in this for a long time. But the bulk of the population, the vast majority of people who buy without actually buying, this does affect them because they get to find out how things are. And maybe this, I only say maybe, is a small battle, one for the physical format against the digital format. And I say maybe because it all depends on how this physical format continues to be approached. Because if the physical format is just to sell you a disc with an installer for something that's gonna run anyway, in the cloud or on a server or whatever, that physical format makes no sense. Just a license with a little plastic box. But perhaps this also motivates many people to opt for the physical format, or to take a little more interest, and maybe companies to take into account a bit more that people want to buy something and keep it. If you are one of those who was not aware that when you buy something or buy a game in a digital store, you are actually not buying anything, well, this should help you start realizing that you are not buying anything. I see you in the comments. Physical format or digital format? I think I know what you're going to put.